Three, two, one, and action.
Hi, I'm Wendy Brookman from Lobby Exchange, where your voice matters. I'm at Parliament House this evening discussing this year's budget that's just been released, and we are lucky enough to be joined by Dr. Jackie Huggins from National Congress of Australia's First Peoples. Good evening, Jackie.
Again.
Oh, it's lovely to see you as well. Now, tonight's budget that's just been released, I've had a bit of a chat with a number of people, and I understand that there's been a bit of mixed emotions, a bit of bittersweet with the budget. Can you share your views on what you think that the budget that was released tonight and how it's going to affect our people?
Well, there were some points of interest, and I think it's a budget that in the short term might feel good, but in the long term, how do we act that out? And by that I mean, there's a lot of expenditure. There's a lot of expenditure there in terms of the Indigenous spend, but we really want to know what is the detail in this. And they give you a figure. It's quite vague sometimes, and we really do want to know how that trickles down to community-controlled organisations, particularly the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community and individuals themselves.
Yeah. So was there a part in the budget that you found that was going to be quite positive for us?
Well, I think one of the most positive is the announcement of the Royal Commission into Disabilities. We think that's fantastic, and I want to recognise and applaud Damien Griffiths and the late Lester Bostock in terms of getting this in place for us 10 years ago or even more. And the First Nations Disability Network, who do a great job on a shoestring budget, like most of us, and they've worked really hard to get this commission up. And when we know that 50% of our people suffer a disability, it's high time. And we also welcome the aged care as well, because, we have an ageing population ourselves, although we know that 25% are under the age of 30 in our community. But, we've still got to take care of us oldies and the elders. Suicide prevention, that's a big one. I'm going to a funeral next Friday of a young woman, 32 years of age in Brisbane, who took her own life. And that's not the first suicide I've been to all year. In fact, it's been a horrendous year in terms of the funerals, loss and grief that we've had in our family. So we're not immune from it either. So preschool education as well, housing, but let's face it, it's not new money. No. There's been a $17 million cut from housing, and housing is one of the most essential, crucial elements in our communities. The health budget, there has been some recognition of the Close the Gap refresh and providing money to that to run. So that's a good thing in terms of our health status. Family violence, an increase there. But the worrying thing is about our NATSLs and legal services being mainstreamed and to compete with community legal services and the like. When we see incarceration in our country going through the roof, of which Aboriginal women are the fastest growing prison population in the country, 80% of them are mothers. So what does that do to the family structure and the breakdown? But at the end of the day, we know that through the Redfern statement that we have the solutions. Communities, individuals at the local level have the great solutions in our community. So we really do need to look at them, investigate them. It's not rocket science, and I've been saying this for about 40 years now. This year, in terms of my my experience in Aboriginal affairs, so it's not new.
No. There was a very big point that our Deputy Chair, Danella Mills, made about getting our voice heard and getting our representation, because we know what works in our community. We know what works with our people. They trust us. And I think that's one of the, from this evening, one of the biggest pushes that I was like, and that means a lot. And it's obviously something that you strongly believe in as well. If we can get our voice heard, There was a number of things that you mentioned through the budget, things like the suicide. You've also got the housing, aged care. Now, what's always sort of I think I've struggled with a little bit is the aged care side of things. But if we don't address closing the gap, then
we will never get there. I mean, we die 11 years less than that of other Australians. We have a small population over the age of 65. We have a very young population, and we should really be acknowledging those people who will require aged care in the future. And as much as we'd love to keep our families with us, as long as they're healthy and we can provide that assistance to them, eventually they may need to go into aged care and respite and homes. So we really do need to be prepared for that too.
Absolutely. And I think that if we address closing the gap like we are and we continue pushing for, then therefore when we do look to improve and get something substantially locked in for our aged care, we will be getting our people to the age to be able to use aged care. And I think, like you said today, with the Commission with disabilities is fantastic. I think the support for NDIS at remote and rural communities is also something that I think would be fantastic. We continue striving for, because I think every single one of those things that you mentioned all go hand in hand. And they all need to be addressed, and they're all just important, and we need to start to look after our nation's first people.
Absolutely. And, it goes back to front sometime. Sometimes the funding is applied to middle age bracket or the older. Yeah. For us, it's the preventative and getting our kids right at the forefront of their lives, through even prenatal and so forth, and birthing and mothers, really important programs that were slashed in 2014 by the Abbott government, who took away $500 million of our funding. So, we need to bring them back, and we really do need to apply those community health solutions to our own programs, and to have them co-designed, to have them implemented and evaluated by our own mob. And until that happens, until government gets that message, we'll never close the gap. But hopefully, maybe in my generation we might see a better coming together. So one would hope.
Well, for everything that you've done for our mob, I do hope that you do see it, because you and many other people have worked so hard for it. And you're right, we need to put a lot more of our work into our youth, because that is our future. They're the ones that are going to keep on going and make sure that preferably what happened in 2014 doesn't happen again, and we get back what our communities need.
And what they deserve, what they are owed, and what they should be respected to do. And that is to have governments and other stakeholders listen to us, and not have this money on the IAS strategy being feted out to non-Indigenous organisations who will use it and squander it, and apply a few Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander decorations in their workforce to allow them to do so, but then go run up to the AMS up the road and say, look, can I have a copy of your policies, or can I have a copy of your strategic plan? Well, it really doesn't work like that. And I'm pleading to all non-Indigenous NGOs who accept Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander money and funding not to do that, to have a second thought about it, and to really know that the money can be better spent in community-controlled organisations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Huggins. It's so great to see you again. Continue doing what you're doing. For people like myself who absolutely look up to you, we appreciate everything that you do.
Thank you.
Pleasure. And that's me signing out. And as always, your voice matters.